Hello, my creative friends. Welcome to the Do It for the Process podcast. I am your host, Emily Jeffords. I'm a full-time artist. I get to help other artists run businesses and honestly create all kinds of amazing things that I love and that many of you love also, including this podcast, which is just very, very cool. So welcome to the Do It for the Process podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something that I personally am wrestling with right now, which is the topic of how to create good work year after year after year. And as I prepare to talk with so many creatives next week inside of Share the Work, if you haven't RSVP'd yet, this is your chance. Do it now. Next week, we're going to focus on how to share our work effectively. And the first step that we're going to talk about is how to create good work, work that can sell, work that will attract an audience, will attract your unique individual buyers, etc., etc. It's going to be a really, really exciting and beautiful week. But what I'm wrestling with on a very personal level, as I step into this role as teacher next week, is authenticity. I have been creating art my whole life. I've been selling my work professionally since 2007. So that's a long time. I have sold, I'm not saying these things to brag. I'm saying these things to prove that this is often an ever-present struggle, an ever-present part of our journeys. But I have sold, 20,000 pieces of artwork, maybe more than that. I actually can't even count between what I've sold personally, which is about 20,000 pieces from my studio, and then licensing, which is a little bit hard to count because those numbers can be crazy. I've sold a lot of art is all I'm trying to say. A lot of art. I've created a lot of art, and I'm coming to my personal creative practice and finding, I wouldn't say resistance, but I'm finding insecurities where I haven't felt them before. And that feels so strange. It feels so strange. So I'm going to talk to myself today, and you're welcome to listen, and maybe you'll resonate with this because I think this is a really, really common growing pain for artists. But how do you create work that you are personally proud of year after year? And I'm not talking about burnout. This is a little bit different from burnout. We've talked about burnout on this podcast before. If you are in the phase of burnout right now, please go back and find those episodes. They are sweet, they are kind, they are incredibly empathetic, because in 2021, I went through really, really bad burnout. And I've spent the last 2.5 years recovering from it. And this is not burnout. This is something different. This is something that's a little bit more in the fabric of my creativity versus in myself. I think burnout often is a very physical and mental and emotional thing. This is more my creative practice. A little bit different. So how do we create good work year after year? It is so interesting being in the seat of teacher next week inside of Share the Work, because the things that we're going to talk about are the things that I have told myself 1,000 times. I've told other artists and creatives so many times, and I think we just need to hear them quite a lot. So in case you're like, wait, what are we talking about next week? Next week inside of Share the Work, we're going to be really, really getting into, oh my gosh, such good topics. On the first day, we'll talk about how to create art that will sell. That's awesome, right? We love that. And that'll kind of be the focus of our conversation today. I'll expand on it and have a different emphasis inside of Share the Work. So, join us there. But today we'll talk a little bit about how to get to the psychological part of having a thriving career and creating work that you're proud of. Day 2 inside of Share the Work, we'll talk about my best tips for finding your collectors. We love finding collectors. We love finding buyers. They are out there. They are not even hard to find, let me tell you. Day number 3 is creating an artist brand. This day is genuinely so much fun. You get to creatively play. You get to imagine how beautiful your business can be, your studio can be. It's such a fun day. Day 4 is the 5 best ways to sell your work in 2025 and beyond. but these are my 5 best tips for today. And then the last day on Friday is how to grow your dream career. And we'll talk about the different ways that artists can make money, the different revenue streams, the different ways to kind of craft your own beautiful, unique career. And each day is going to be so fun and so filling. And the community space is so active and happy and just good, just really, really good. So RSVP, I'll put a link right down below. Just scroll up a little bit, click the link, sign up. It's totally free. I don't know if I said that, but it's totally free. You can join me live each day at noon. And if you can't join us noon, that's fine. Or at noon, that's fine. You can watch the replays or listen to the replays if that works better for your energy. No worries. Also, each day I'll be sharing a little 5 or 6 page little workbook just to keep us all focused. For those of us like me who like to write and just kind of journal through some guided prompts, some guided thoughts, some spaces to fill in, what you're looking for. When we talk about branding, I'll give some visual examples. When we talk about different ways to sell your work, I'll outline some different ways. So anyways, they're really, really great and practical workbooks. So you get those each day. Okay, let me talk to myself now. Hi, Emily. How are you? Let's talk about creating good work year after year. As I said, I am many, many years into this, and I'm having some realizations. And just to paint the picture a little bit, as you know, I moved into a new home, into a new studio at the beginning of February. So I've been there for a month, and it makes sense that, I settled into what should be a painting day, and I came up against a lot of resistance and I couldn't figure out how to feel creative. I couldn't figure out how to physically move through the act of picking up my brushes and getting everything ready. And partly that's because my new studio space is new, so nothing is quite in its right spot yet. I don't even know where the spots are. I'm still finding my flow in there, which has massive pros, by the way, because setting up new rhythms is really important every now and then in your life. But also it has some pretty big cons because I don't know where my brush cleaner is. I don't know where my particular brushes are. There's just some things that my go-to tools are not in go-to places. So that's already a resistance element. But the one that makes me feel like I need to pause and notice is a different resistance element. And it's one that feels like I need to learn how to trust myself in this new space, yes. But also I need to learn or remind myself maybe again that I am trustworthy. And I say this so often to artists. I say that artists are dependable, that we can depend on ourselves, that there's nothing more dependable than our ability to see a problem and creatively problem solve. That is literally what we are gifted in. We are incredibly dependable. I am incredibly dependable. My creative practice is incredibly dependable. So yes, I'm moving into a new space and that feels undependable because I just don't have my rhythms yet. And rooms hold energy, spaces hold energy, and I haven't infused the space with any creative energy yet, so I just need to I need to do it. I need to prioritize doing that. So I stepped into my space on what should be a painting day and felt really uncomfortable. I couldn't settle my brain and body down. There were other things happening in my personal life also that led to this. So it made sense, and I wasn't hard on myself about that. But I do want to move through this phase quickly. So I turned to my resources, which are my intuition, my friends, books, guiding posts, those guides that you need when you are up against a hard place. There are guides everywhere. And so I'm tapping into those actively right now, and I have for the past week. And I can't wait to move through this and to find my own creative footing again in this new season, this new space, all the things. So I'm going to talk through that a little bit today because I don't think this is unique to me. I think this is probably something that a lot of us come up against if you have a longer creative career or creative exploration, a creative practice. So my first thing that I settled into is realizing or giving myself permission, maybe a better phrase for it, giving myself permission to not grow along a linear path. How do I say this? How do I explain this? I think sometimes we think, especially if you went to art school, that you should progress in your skills along this very linear path. You should start with painting 101, you should go to 102, you should progress to your like senior thesis. Like you should move along this path, and your work should like very systematically look better and better and better as you progress, right? And you should grow in skills, and you should grow in your ability to express yourself, and your work should be more and more refined, etc. I think that is true, but I think that is extremely detrimental, because what it does to someone that has for example, I've been working on creating this landscape body of work for years, like over 10 years. I've been obsessed with landscapes. I've painted so many of them. They are the foundation of my creative practice and of my business. I love them, right? Like I've refined the way that I approach that subject matter by trial and error, and by painting and painting and painting and painting and painting, and selling almost all those steps along the way, which is awesome. Now, what happens is when I try something new, I expect that I will step into this new thing at the same level of finesse as my 10 plus years of painting landscapes, which is so silly. Also, there's this beautiful thing that happens when you walk through an artist retrospective. Like, for example, there's a few Picasso museums that I've gotten to visit in Europe, and I've seen a couple of exhibits of his work in the US. Every time I see a Picasso exhibit, I'm struck with the fact that linear skills, like the techniques that you see when someone goes from a freshman to a senior to a master's level in art school, those skills of progression and of finesse, Picasso actively worked to not go along that same path. His work does not, he is an incredibly skilled painter, do not get me wrong. But the fact that he began at a level of finesse and refinement and quote unquote excellence, and devolved that down to cubism and abstract, not even abstract expressionism, but just like abstract mark making, and like worked it down to this like childlike, unrefined way. It's so cool to just see the body of his work and to watch him strip away the finesse and strip away the excellence. And as someone that likes to look at their work, and maybe you can relate to this, I don't know, I like to look at my work and be a little critical, especially when it's not the right time for that. That's extremely detrimental. And I can see Picasso actively practicing a lack of critique, at least in the way that I might critique my work. Like, he'll make a mark, and if I were to make that same mark, I might go, ooh, not quite right, not quite in the right spot, not the right weight, not the right space, whatever. He'll look at it and be like, does it express what I wanted to express, yes or no? And, move on from there. But when you walk through a Picasso museum, especially one that's organized chronologically, his work doesn't get better throughout his life. It gets more clear, more expressive, more... it has a stronger point of view, but as far as technique goes, it doesn't improve. It stays like he has a mastery of his medium, of course, but it's not like it's becoming more and more refined and more perfect throughout his life. So I feel like what that shows me is that improving in our work will look different for each and every one of us. And that might mean that your work does become more realistic and more refined and more perfected as you progress in your creative career. That might mean that your work devolves and becomes stripped away of that refinement throughout your creative career. So the arbitrary markings that we might aim towards, those are not necessary. Take them out of your brain. Take them out of your brain. Take them out of your practice. They are not helpful. Progress along the path that you need to progress. If that means refine and perfect, beautiful. If that means loosen up and feel free, beautiful. If that means that you create work that you're extremely proud of one year and that you're like, I don't know about these, they're fine. The next year, that's completely fine. I think we hold ourselves to standards that are just a little bit, they're not made for us. They're not made for us. I saw this quote on Threads, which I love Threads. If you're on Threads, find me there. It's such a fun place. It's delightful. But I saw this quote, and I don't know who it's attributed to. I looked it up, and I can't find anything on Google about it. If you know, please let me know. But this quote was so precious, and I want to read it to you because it really made my heart happy. And it just kind of took the ego out of this whole thing, which we love more of that. The quote reads, "I once met an old artist who never sold a single painting. His tiny studio was filled with canvases, worlds no one had seen. 'Why do you keep painting?' I asked. He smiled. 'Because I'd rather leave behind a room full of my soul than a lifetime of silence.'" And I love that quote because I think that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to remind myself and also to remind you that what we're doing as artists is making marks of our souls. We are not trying to aim for perfection. And I know we hear that quote a lot, like perfection is the enemy of progress and things of that nature. But in your creative work, all you're trying to do is mark your soul's message right now. Like, what do you need to say? What do you want to say? How do you want to feel right now? What do you want to express right now? Just focus on that. And whether it's excellent or better than the last piece or becoming, your step into your masterpiece or whatever, that doesn't matter because all we're trying to do is leave behind a room full of our soul, which hopefully, of course, as someone that teaches artists how to sell their work, of course we're going to sell our work and it won't all be in one room, although maybe it will be in a museum, which would be incredible. But we're going to share that work. We're going to attract people to that work. We're going to see that work loved and appreciated by being sold. So beautiful. But I love that quote, and I just love that reframe of we're just here to talk and to share and to let ourselves feel free in our expression, and that's all we're trying to do. Okay, the next thing that I'm telling myself, just to recap what I've been kind of rambling about, the first thing that I'm reminding myself is that we are growing along a unique path, and that path is not linear. There's no success path for your creative work. There is for your business and for, personal development, et cetera, but for your creative work, it's going to look, who knows, maybe beautiful, maybe a little bit crazy. I don't know. We'll see. The next thing I'm reminding myself of is to anchor myself in past successes. So as I step into this space and feel a little overwhelmed, feel a little hypercritical, feel a little bit like unmoored creatively because I don't have the energy markers, I do have the past success markers. This is something that my friend Katerina Popova, she runs Create Magazine and is an incredible artist herself. I got to ask her in a recent workshop for the collective what she does at this phase because we were kind of relating on like having a long career and what do you do when it's not a burnout phase, but it's like a creative next step and you have to step into it and it can feel a little bit nerve-wracking. So what do you do to move through that process? And she reminded me of this idea of anchors, and she gave us a whole beautiful meditation inside of the collective workshop. But basically, she reminded me that you have past successes. Just tap back into that energy. And if something's happening in your daily life or in your practice, you had a success that you want to mark, to actually mark that success in your mind and come back to it when you enter into your creative practice. So it's kind of like, if you create a mark that you're like, oh my gosh, I love how that worked. Pin that in your mind essentially and say, when I create, I feel this feeling. When I go to market or sell my work and someone responds affectionately, that is the feeling that I know is accessible to me, and that's the one that I'm going to live in. So for a creative practice, I'm going to tag in my mind the work that I have loved the most. I'm going to say that is the work that I create. That's the work that I do. And not to hold myself to some arbitrary standard, but just to know that I can depend on my creative practice. I can depend on myself in this way. And I don't know, that is really, really beautiful to me. And I also can feel that like in my I can feel that in my body when I go back to imagine my work, and when I sit down to create new work, I know that I can create work that is this excellent because I've done it before. I can continue that process and that trajectory of my own personal level of success. I love it. This one I think is really, really beautiful. The third one I'm going to talk about today is look for guides. Is it possible? And this might be something that I need to tap into while I go to create. I have a new body of work that's just been in my heart and mind, and I'm a little bit nervous about creating it. Is it possible? Are there guides? Are there guides that I have a whole longish career based on an aesthetic? Are there guides that can show me that it's okay to change aesthetics, both living and dead? Are there artists that I can look at that were like, kind of set in their path and they've moved through to another thing and they found success in that? Picasso's a great example of that one also. He created whatever he wanted to create. Ceramics, jewelry, paintings on cardboard, paintings on everything. He was prolific and he did whatever he wanted to do. So I know it's possible, but now I have to anchor myself in the idea that it's possible for me, and looking to guides that have both shifted and grown and express themselves as they need to, while also growing a career and, making this a financially viable option for your life. I need guides that can say, yes, it's possible. Yes, it's possible. And I'm honored to be that guide for so many people. I also need that though. I need to find that in my own life, which is why having mentors, having people that can just be with you on this journey is invaluable. It's life-changing. I cannot state that enough. It is life-changing. It has been for me. I'm sure it has been for you. This is the beauty of Share the Work, by the way. Join me. I will be that guide for you next week in whatever way you need. And it's really, really beautiful. I wrote down that basically with this practice, all we're doing is making sure that someone has walked on this path before us and that they didn't fall off a cliff. And of course they have. Of course, we're not trying anything that new and that crazy. We're just trying to express ourselves a little bit differently in a way that might feel a little bit bold and might feel a little bit beautiful. I think one thing that I did last month that was so touching to me is I showed myself that I was also my own guide by writing a little poem called I Met My Younger Self for Coffee. And this is a bit of a trend that became really, really beautiful. You might have seen it on the internet. If not, go look it up. It's actually so sweet. And I would very much recommend that you write your own I Met My Younger Self for Coffee poem. It was profound. I didn't expect to feel what I felt when I wrote it, but rooting myself in both the present and in the past is such a beautiful way of knowing deep in your bones that you are your own guide. You have been more vulnerable and more unknowing than you are now, and look at where you are now, regardless of if you want to reflect back 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. The progress that we make to progress and just to grow and to shift and to change is profound. So my poem goes like this. I'll read it to you here. It's a little vulnerable, but I already posted it up on the internet, so you've already maybe seen it. I met my younger self for coffee. She was 21, I am 39. We were both 15 minutes late. She wore a nervous smile and had a lot more paint on her clothes than I did. She was cloudy with big dreams, but even bigger fears. And she wasn't sure if she could believe the things I was quietly telling her. The curator was wrong, very wrong. You do make money with your art, yes, even with young children, 3 of them, and yes, they're very cute. And your art is carried by Anthropology. Actually, you designed a full home collection with them, and yes, we're still not chill about it. You sell original paintings and prints to more countries than you can count, and your work is in stores and galleries, commissioned by collectors, and you get to travel a lot because it turns out you love traveling very much. Even though you're still terrible at French, I'm so sorry. But I'm going to warn you, life is also very, very hard. You often photograph yourself crying and write deeply sad poems to process, but it's okay because, right, you're just beginning to learn this. Baby, you are incredibly strong and capable, and your creativity is dependable. Sweetie, art school is barely the beginning of what you will learn. Oh, and now you're helping thousands of other artists know and trust the same thing, that art is a generous lover and she will provide for you. But for now, young me just needs someone to pay for her coffee and a very long hug. Oh, it's so sweet to just think back to 21-year-old me and how fragile and excited and eager and ill-equipped and unknowing I was, and just the gentle, consistent progress and growth and the gentle steps of acceptance and knowing that I can do better, I can be better, I can create better. Oh my gosh, that changes everything. It changes your entire life. If you are aching for a little bit of that energy and a little bit of that progress, please know that I am in this with you, quite literally. I just told you about my own, stepping into my creative practice and feeling some vulnerability in that space. I am working through this and with this with you. And it's an honor to get to be with you in this. Inside of Share the Work next week, we're both going to step into our power together at whatever phase of the path you're on, whatever you need to grow in. Only you know that for sure, but I will gladly and generously share what I have learned to grow a business around my creative work and to sustain it year after year, to make it profitable year after year, to get to employ others year after year. And just, there are so many ways to make this career bountiful and abundant in every way, creatively, financially, energetically, emotionally. It gives you so much purpose, so much love, so much power, so much voice. I'm just so glad that I was brave enough at 21 to take this career and make it my own, even when the voices around me were quite literally telling me that was not possible and that I should work at a framing store, I should work at an art supply store, which that's great. We love those jobs, but I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a painter. And the tenacity that I showed to do this, even when people around me were saying that it wasn't possible, I'm very, very proud of, and I'm very, very grateful for. And I would love to be that voice in your life that says, you can do this. I know it's hard. I know there are all kinds of obstacles from inside of you and outside of you. But the ones that are from within, we can move past those. There are so many skills. I hope this episode was helpful in that even. There are so many ways that you can prove to yourself that you are so dependable, that you have those markers of success, that you have guides, that your path can be your own, and it may not look like anyone else, and it may not mean that your work looks like anyone else's, and that's so good. That's actually so valuable. But it's really, really precious to get to sit in this space and to watch artists thrive. So join us next week and Share the Work. You have to RSVP, so make sure you do that. Get into the community space. The workshops happen every day live at noon Eastern time, and the workshop replays are available after that. So if you can't join us at noon, that's fine. But I really encourage, prioritize, set an alarm on your phone, join us live at noon. I'll be answering your questions then, having conversations with you. You get to share your work, you get to network, you get to not market your work, but share your work with others in a way that feels like, hey, we're all in this together. The artists in this space are generous and so kind and sweet. So RSVP, save your spot. I can't wait to meet you in there and see you in there. And if you're coming from the podcast, I am going to call you out specifically and say hi to you intentionally. So I can't wait to see my podcast friends in there. All right. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.